Hi there. My name is Mr. Manson. I'm the Vice Principal at Cullybackey College. And over the last week, we have been trying to get some of our exam students to focus on revision. And some of the reasons behind this is because this week there are 10 weeks to go until the exams actually begin. We've got less than 10 weeks left, which is around about 50 school or teaching days left. And that's it. And that makes it really important for us to be able to move towards these exams. And in this short video, what I want to do is to take a little bit of time just to let you know what we've been trying to instruct our students on how they can be preparing for these exams at this stage in the year. And we're very aware that our students actually have had a really difficult time in school over the last couple of years. It's been really disjointed. They've been in and they've been out. But the reality is that they all are going to be doing exams this year, and that they are going to have to start to prepare for these exams in a way that they've maybe never had to do or think about since before. So what we want to do is to try and support our students as much as we can as they move into this and towards this. And one of the things that we need to remind our students about is that success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, but it does come from what you do consistently. So in other words, our students need to be dedicated to this work. They need to be making sure that they are being deliberate about what they are doing and that they do it all of the time. There is no point in actually expecting to get good results if they do not do some hard work from now until the end of the exam period. So what I want to do is sort of share some of the things that we were talking about. What are some of the key points about revision that we would share with our students? Well, from today, they should be spending at least 1 hour per night on their own extra revision. And this is something they should be doing themselves. This is not something which is set by teachers. This is something that they do for themselves on their own. And that amount of time should increase the closer to the exams that they actually get. And they should probably spend more time over the weekends. Now, this is on top of all of the work that they're still currently doing as they prepare and finish off courses. This is extra revision. And I think it's really important that our students realise that revision is something that should be done mostly at home. And yes, we will try and support our students as best we can. We will do revision activities and do revision sessions with them in school. But the bulk of the revision work has got to come at home. It is done at home. Revision is not something that you start the night before the exam. And this is the reason why we're doing these assemblies now, because we want our students to realise that they need to start now. Because the reality is that the more revision that you do, the more prepared that you will be, then the less nervous, the less worried you will be for any exam. My experience is the people who are most worried whenever they walk into the exams are the people who actually are the least prepared, because they suddenly realise that they should have had all of this work done a long time ago. But the reality is that they haven't, and that makes them under more pressure. Revision is something that needs to be repeated. You don't just do it once. The word revision comes from the word revisit, so that whenever you revisit information, you will remember it for longer. And the number of times that you revisit and retrieve that information from your memory banks, the number of times that you do that is directly proportional to how successful you are and how good your memory is. So I suppose the key point that I'm trying to make is that revision starts now. This is the time when the revision starts. It is not at Easter. It is not before Easter. It is not 2 weeks before the exam or one night before the exam. Revision for exams needs to start now. So how is it that we actually do learn stuff? It's pretty useful maybe for me to share a little bit about how the brain actually works and what brain scientists tell us about how we can improve our memories in this. Now, of it, this is a quite a complicated diagram, but this helps us to understand a little bit about how our brains actually work. Because learning is all about our short-term or our working memory and our long-term memory. The learning happens as we transfer the knowledge between this short-term memory and the long-term memory. Our short-term memory is something that we maybe only hold in our head for a very short period of time. So we're sitting in class, we are listening to something, we will remember that for 10, 20 minutes. We won't remember it any longer than that. But what we need to do is to embed that stuff into our long-term memory, where we will try and remember the whole sequence of this, which is called a schema. And that schema sometimes can be very, very simple with a couple of pieces of information, or it can be very complex. But we're trying to remember this information. But the more times that we then drag that knowledge back out of our long-term memory and back into our working memory, that is where we actually remember all of the things that we need to remember. So we need to feed our brain. We need to feed it with useful, deliberate knowledge that is useful in a test and an exam. And it needs to be the student that is doing the feeding. It's not up to teachers or parents to do this. It needs to be the student that fills their head with the required knowledge and information that they require for the exam. You will forget stuff, but that's okay, because forgetting is actually part of this process. You need to sit and think and drag these memories from the back of your brain to the forefront of your brain all over again. Hermann Ebbinghaus was a German scientist who did a lot of research into this, and he realized that we forget stuff, and he estimated that after 28 minutes we will only remember 58% of what we've actually just been looking at. After an hour it goes to 44%. After 6 days it's down to 25%, which means we will only remember a quarter of what we're actually learning after a week. So if you leave it for even longer than that, 31 days, it continues to go down. So if we do not revisit this information, we will not retain this information in our brains. So this second graph here in the bottom right reminds us of how much we can retain when we revisit. So we need to be deliberate in going back and making sure that we repeat our revision process and review over it again and again and again. Now, this is called interleaving, where you leave a bit of a space between the topics. You allow your brain the chance to forget and then refresh those memories, and then they will stick here longer. So for proper learning to take place, you need to look over your notes. You need to learn them at least 3 times and sometimes more. So how can you then start to prepare and plan for your exams? Well, from now to mid-March, to around about St. Patrick's Day, you should be spending at least an hour a night across all your different subjects. Okay? And this is where you start to prepare. You start to get organized. You check that you've all the notes that you need. You go back over all your old topics and you start to take revision notes. You take notes from your books and your folders and your textbooks. You take notes of the keywords and the phrases and the diagrams. And then from St. Patrick's Day to early May, to the other side of Easter, this is the consolidation stage. Now you need to up your time here. You're maybe starting to work at 2 hours a night across all of your subjects. Now what you're going to do now is you're going to start to review your revision notes, and you're going to try and reduce these down to keywords, maybe create mind maps, maybe create lists of learning of words that you need to remember, creating your own little revision note cards. But maybe you're also going to look up past paper questions. You're going to create and learn model answers. And you're going to try and make sure that you've learned everything that could be asked as a question in your exams. Then finally, you move into stage 3, which is the final revision stage. This is where you try to pull out the key words, the key phrases, the important points. You create your own set of learning notes and flashcards. You fill these with as much information as you can, maybe with questions on one side, answers on the other, and you review over these notes time and time again and relearn them and practice your answers orally and by writing them down. And of course, for this, you're going to spend as much time as you possibly can preparing yourself for your exams. So, practically, in terms of a revision, you need to constantly test yourself and see if you can recall the key facts. You can maybe do a brain dump to try and see what you can remember and then compare this to the right answer. You should try and look up past paper questions, as I said. These are on the SIA website. Practice them, write out the answers. Make sure that you look at what the mark schemes say about what makes a good and a great model answer. Your teachers will try to guide and support you. They'll maybe even give you a revision planner that will help you plan what you should be doing each week. But what you need to be doing is taking this upon yourself. You have a choice. You can sit on your phones, on your Xbox, you can watch the Netflix box sets. That is definitely the easy option. Or you can actually start to take responsibility for your own learning. Revision is boring. You need silence. You need to leave your phone out of the room. You need to have no music and no TV on. You cannot multitask even if you think that you can. You need to just focus on one thing for a short time, and then you can go and do whatever else you want to do. It takes discipline. And yes, you can bluff your parents, you can bluff your teachers, but you won't be able to bluff the examiner who marks your exams. Try to do this. Try to keep it simple and try to focus on your revision. Your revision should be flat. So focus by putting your phone away, turning the music off, avoiding the distractions, find a quiet place to revise, and be in the right frame of mind. Revision should also be long term. So start early to cut down the stress, make a revision timetable, stick to it, decide what subjects you're going to do each night and try and plan it that you're covering everything equally. Aim for an hour at night at first and interleave different topics. Do them once and then in a couple of weeks' time come back and do them again. Make sure your revision is active. Engage your brain by taking notes and creating your own revision resources. If you're just sitting reading stuff, you're not revising. You will never remember that stuff when it comes to the exam. You need to be writing, you need to be processing, and as the next one says, you need to transform that knowledge. You need to transform what you learn into a different format. But also with active, make sure you revise what you struggle with. Don't set aside the subject that you don't like or don't enjoy or find difficult. That's the one you need to spend more time on. Make some flashcards, produce a timeline, take some Cornell notes, create a mind map, create lists, design a flow chart, whatever you want to do. But you should be transforming everything as much as possible. Look, it's 50 days to go. It's not a huge amount of time to change your grades. 50 days to change your future. 50 days to make sure that you leave school with the best qualifications that you can possibly get your hands on. Make sure that you take notes on the lined paper. Then create mind maps and lists so that you're picking out the keywords to everything. And then create your own note cards. These note cards are extremely important and extremely valuable because these note cards, you can put all of the information that you need to remember, concentrate it down to the key facts, and then you can shuffle them, you can reorder them, you can repeat, you can look over these many, many times to make sure that you're learning all of the most important things. Well, look, this is over to you now. And parents, it's over to you to try and see if you can get your children to spend extra time working. The reality is that your child is competing with thousands of other children who are doing all the same subjects in Northern Ireland. They've all been through the problems of COVID over the last 2 years. And now it's a case of your child has got to compete with them and has got to do their best and prepare their best so that they can actually get the best grade that is possible. So make sure that they do not regret leaving it too late. It is too late at Easter time. It is too late after Easter. They need to be starting their revision now in a small way and work their way through. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this is something which is useful to you as you support your child in learning.